My name is Ellie Alchin, and I'm the Director of Teaching and Learning here on the Dover campus. So Tanger is fantastic. It couldn't be more exciting for us as a community to be moving to an area which is going to be the flagship sustainability area of Singapore, and for us to be at the heart of that. It doesn't get much better than that for a school with a mission like ours. We have a generous plot given the constraints that the Singapore government faces with space. We have a very generous plot next to what will be a beautiful park, and we have opportunities to blur the boundaries between us and the park spaces to look at creative ways that we will be able to use those park spaces for teaching and learning with our students, opportunities to open up parts of our campus for access by the community in the way that we already do here, but in even more interesting and innovative ways. And we will have our location in relation to other stakeholders, and that near that plot will also be excellent. There's also a lot of talk about the transport links and how strong they're going to be, what an emphasis there's going to be on green ways of getting to and from school. So lots of opportunities there, which is fantastic. It's also a nice tidy shaped plot because we'll be able to use it very effectively. East has posed, we've got to overcome them, but East has posed some challenges by being on a corner, and so it's a wonderfully shaped plot that's very practical. And we also have a second plot across the park, which we're going to be using for the new boarding house, which will be ideal in giving the boarders their own sense of a home, slightly away and detached from school, but still very close. And there are huge potential for us to address some challenges that we face on this current plot in that new space. So I think the interesting thing about the future of education is that education has always been a changing space. There's always been innovation happening and new ideas and new approaches. What is interesting is that some fundamentals haven't changed and won't change. The importance of relationships, and we learnt through COVID that students flourish and thrive when they're together and when they have good relationships with their teachers. And the idea that we can all be taught by AI and we won't need to kind of connect anymore, and that we can all we need is an iPad and a remote server. We've learned that is not the case, that we will need school spaces, that kids need to be able to play and connect, that adults need playful spaces, that we are better when we are together. But we've also learned from being in a big school and understanding how human beings work, that as technology becomes more fast-paced, as our world becomes more online, that actually finding ways to connect authentically with nature, with other people, with ourselves, to put our devices to one side and to experience and be connected to our senses, and to have quiet spaces, we call them nest spaces, and focus and flow spaces that don't feel where you're being bombarded with technology, that these design elements are going to be increasingly important in our new school designs. So I think some of the future of education design is about recognizing that technology plays a role and that we need to have space for that, but that we also need to not lose sight of what we know is important to being human, that our psychosocial needs are really important, and that we need to intentionally take care of them through design, that having spaces that are welcoming and friendly and inclusive, that's not going to go away. We're not going to not need that in the future. So I think there are some things that we need to keep hold of, no matter what's changing elsewhere. But having said that, we also recognise that there are key trends that are not going away, that are really exciting and powerful. So the idea of remote learning, blended learning, that's obviously going to be featuring in our IT systems. But also we've been looking at the design, for example, of classrooms where half the students might be physically present and half might not be. So hybrid classrooms as being an option where it is perfectly possible to participate if you happen to be a scholar who's in a different country, and so on, or languages that we want to offer where the numbers are small. So we have classes made up of students from both East and Dover being taught in the same class. We're already doing that at the moment. We're already piloting a course that's like that. So providing classroom spaces that allow for that kind of pedagogy is really important. Another thing we've noticed is that we're able to make savings on spaces because we don't need so much storage for materials. With a lot more of our learning materials being online or virtual, we don't need to have as many shelving spaces for textbooks. Now, obviously, books and libraries are not going anywhere, but our libraries are already broadening the range of their provision. A library, as you look at it now, is very, very different from how it was when we were all at school. So we're already riding the wave of shifts in educational thinking. I think designing spaces that are very flexible and open is really important. So multifunctional spaces, but we've also learned that we mustn't do that and sacrifice specialist spaces. So, for example, you could create a generic classroom that works for every subject, and that would be very flexible, but then the science lessons in that space would not be top quality, or the film lessons or the drama lessons. So it's finding a balance between the needs for specialist spaces and more multifunctional spaces that can be a bit more flexible depending on how the world of education changes. But fundamentally, relationships, we know, are going to be very, very important between teachers and students. And so we're building spaces that will support those things. So the whole idea of a mission-aligned education is that we have buildings and learning spaces that support the education that enables our mission. And if you think of our mission as being about educating for peace and sustainable futures, then we need a very special campus that will enable us to do that. So one example would be obviously the idea of sustainability. So we are a very green campus on Dover, and things like our garden spaces, our solar paneling, the bioswale, all of the areas and features of our current campus that we use for teaching and learning, we needed to understand how we were going to embed those in a new campus. And that idea of greenery, not just for aesthetic value, which is a very well understood concept, but within Singapore, but also the idea of green spaces that we use for teaching and learning and for service and with our community partners and so on. So biophilic design was extremely important. That's one example. But there are other areas. So the idea of collaborative learning. So our learning principles are very much embedded in how we design our buildings. So collaboration, collaborative spaces, it's much easier for students to collaborate if you design your spaces in certain ways. So having areas which have breakout spaces, that's something that's very common in primary school. We've introduced them in middle school, and now increasingly we want to have them with high school students as well. We've got a very successful example of that. Very generous donation from Uwcsea family enabled us to develop the dance and drama loft here on Dover campus. It's been phenomenally successful as a collaborative space for different kinds of student learning. And so the success of projects like that on our current campus is something that we really wanted to expand and develop more in our new campus. There are other aspects around, for example, community. So we're a school that's we have a very broad community who are very important to us. So we have many, many alumni, and many of them come back regularly, and their connection to Dover is very deep and very rich and very important to them. So we knew that in the new design, we really wanted to think about ways in which we could retain and take with us certain features of Dover that were really iconic and recognisable, but do that in an authentic way, and a way that sort of, I suppose, brought a new flavour, a freshness to it. So that was very important to us. And thinking about the spaces for our parent community and for our service partners. So we bring many, many service partners onto the campus, and we need to think about design that's going to be accessible. So safeguarding is very, very important, but we also have, we want a campus that's going to be very inclusive and welcoming. And so as we think about inclusive design and the way in which we have a wheelchair-friendly campus, for example, and a campus that can be accessed by adults with learning needs and so on, all of those sorts of things were incredibly important to us. The fact that we're part of the movement is also a key feature, recognising some features that really connect us to our sister colleges so that it's recognisable as a UWC. All sorts of design features that connect to our mission and identity as a UWC. We have a very vibrant and very active facilities committee who are constantly looking at ways to upgrade and update and improve and maintain our fabulous campus. One of the things that's been quite exciting is the way in which looking ahead to the new campus design has injected even more energy and inspiration into how we think about our use and development of spaces on our current campus. So there's no question of us letting things fall into disrepair or anything like that. Our facilities team do a magnificent job of maintaining our beautiful campus, and we've got new and innovative projects. We've got a brand new high school centre downstairs, completely open working, radical new spaces for the student council, for more student friendly use of the adult office, what has traditionally been adult office spaces, and that's just this last long break as that's come to pass, and we're already talking about projects that we're going to be doing in future holiday breaks. So I don't have any fears about that happening at all. The opportunity to pilot new ways of working and innovative practices is an exceptional opportunity that we have as a result of this new campus initiative. So on both campuses we've got projects being piloted every year to look at new ways of approaching things, new styles of using technology in different ways, and all sorts of things like that.